Understanding Manchester City's APT win against English Premier League. Manchester City is no stranger to victory, but this time the challenge is off the field. In a high-stakes legal battle, City is locked in a clash with the Premier League over commercial rules. With a lineup stronger than ever, they're proving they can dominate both the game and the boardroom. So, how did City score a big one against the Premier League in the legal arena? Or did they? If you're interested in the Manchester City and Premier League battle as we are, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more deep dives into the world of football. Backstory. The saying that football is a game of two halves has a whole different meaning for the folks at Manchester City these days. It's not every day you see a football club locked in battles both on and off the pitch. In fact, it's pretty rare for legal drama to dominate the football world to the point where fans are just as wrapped up in courtroom decisions as they are in the game. But here we are. For the first time in the division's 32-year history, findings from a legal case between a club and the Premier League were made public. And it appears, somehow, there's a historic victory for one party. Or is it both? Both Manchester City and the Premier League are claiming victory after the verdict from the associated party transaction hearing was revealed. If you're thinking, wait, what's an APT hearing? Or why does this matter? Don't worry, you're not alone. Let me break it down. Back in June, Manchester City took the Premier League to independent arbitration, saying the rules around associated party transactions, APT, were unfair. City believes these rules are holding them back from making big money sponsorship deals. Why? Because FFP limits how clubs can work with companies that have the same owners as the club. So, for example, if City wanted to sign a huge sponsorship deal with a connected company, there are strict rules to ensure it's all above board. Instead of letting them cash in freely, the Premier League forces teams to prove that any sponsorship deal with a related company matches the value a neutral company would pay. These deals are called associated party transactions, and they're closely monitored. But here's where it gets tricky. When Newcastle United was taken over by Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, the Premier League tightened these rules even further. City didn't like this one bit. From their perspective, the changes weren't just unfair, they were anti-competitive and potentially illegal. They've been fighting back, claiming the rules are rigged against them. Possible witch hunt. When the hearing kicked off in June, Manchester City's lawyers didn't hold back. They called the changes to the financial fair play rules nothing more than fear-mongering. In a 165-page legal document shared with The Times, City argued these new rules had caused them discrimination. And why does City feel particularly targeted? It just so happens that their sponsorship network has long been tied to key figures who also sit on the board of the City Football Group, which owns the club. That means the APT rules hit them harder than most other Premier League teams. Judgment Day. The arbitration hearing back in June lasted a full 2 weeks, and you just know Manchester City didn't come unprepared. Their legal team was led by Lord Panic KC, one of the most expensive and well-known lawyers in the UK. The judgment was delivered on the 25th of September, and it was quite the spectacle. So, what were the key details of the ruling? First and foremost, the panel made it clear that the concept of APT laws is here to stay. City had hoped to challenge these rules, arguing they were anti-competitive. But the tribunal disagreed, saying APT rules ensure financial fairness across all clubs. Here's where it gets interesting. The panel did find some issues with how the APT rules were applied in specific cases, which gave City something of a victory. Cloaked in mystery. This part of the case might seem like a technicality, but it's actually pretty important. Here's how it works. Every club in the Premier League has to submit their sponsorship deals to a fair market value test. This test is designed to make sure clubs aren't inflating the value of their deals with companies they have close ties to, something the league is trying to prevent under the APT rules. But there's a catch. Right now, clubs don't get to see the data that the Premier League uses to judge whether their deal passes the test. They're going in blind, having to trust that the league is making a fair decision without knowing what it's basing that decision, arguing that it wasn't fair. They said that without access to the data, they weren't being given a proper opportunity to make informed representations. In other words, City felt like they were being asked to defend their sponsorship deals without knowing what evidence was being used against them, which put them at a disadvantage. To them, this was a key part of why they believed the process was rigged. Two of their major sponsorship deals, one with Etihad Airways and another with First Abu Dhabi Bank, were blocked under these flawed rules. The judgment made it clear that these deals were wrongly rejected because City wasn't given the opportunity to defend their case. Even more, the panel hinted that City could now go after damages, meaning they could be entitled to compensation for the money they lost from these blocked deals. City also brought up another issue, and that is delays in decision-making. Under the current system, the Premier League is supposed to respond to sponsorship applications within a certain time frame. But City claimed this wasn't happening in 3 cases: the Etihad and FAB deals, plus another agreement with Emirates Palace, a luxury hotel in Abu Dhabi. These delays only added to the sense that Manchester City wasn't being treated fairly. The Premier League, on the other hand, defended this lack of transparency by saying it was necessary because of the confidential nature of the proposed transactions. They argued that revealing the data could compromise the sensitive financial information of other clubs or companies. When the panel looked at both sides, they ended up siding with City on this point. They agreed that clubs should have more access to the data being used to evaluate their deals. But then again, the judgment didn't suggest that City would suddenly get free rein to look at everything. Instead, the ruling seemed more like a compromise. The panel made it clear that while the Premier League would have to share certain information before clubs submitted their deals, it would still have to respect existing confidentiality agreements. Shareholder loan. Now, another takeaway, and probably the biggest takeaway from the ruling, was all about shareholder loans, something that could lead to a huge shake-up for other Premier League clubs. Manchester City argued that these loans, where clubs borrow money from their owners, often without paying interest, should be treated the same as sponsorship deals under the APT rules. Up until now, shareholder loans were left out of the APT regulations, but City felt this gave other clubs an unfair advantage. Since these loans don't rack up interest, clubs end up owing less and benefit financially in a way that messes with profitability and sustainability rules. City's point was that just like sponsorship deals, interest-free loans distort what's considered fair market value. They also argued that restricting APT rules to sponsorships, especially from Gulf state-linked sponsors, was unfair. The panel agreed with City, saying there's no difference in principle between including sponsorships and leaving out loans. In fact, they called the exclusion unlawful and said the Premier League would need to update its rules. This could mean a lot of clubs will have to rethink their finances, especially those relying on interest-free loans from their owners, to avoid breaking the new rules. It's a major win for City and could even the playing field financially.